Can you tell us about family caregivers and what do you think that they can learn from your book?
Okay. Well, I like to introduce Dare to Care comparing it to a cookbook. And here's why. There's not a single recipe. I graduated from college as an electrical engineer, and I had learned how to be an engineer. But my mother never taught me how to cook. So as a newlywed, I relied on my Betty Crocker's cookbook. I still do. It has simple concepts and ingredients that I have in my pantry and my refrigerator. So family caregivers can find themselves in the role of caregiving and not knowing how to provide care. I think that is really the essence of why I wrote the book, because the caregivers find themselves in this role of caregiving and they really don't know exactly what to do about it. So I wrote the book using words and concepts for non-professionals, families, that they can understand. I begin the book by teaching 4 types of care. These types of care are just as different as soups, salads, meats, dessert, and I want to take just a minute to explain them. The first one I call Supervisory Care, and that is basically hands-off caregiving, and people do this all the time. They make phone calls, they give people rides to church, they go grocery shopping. So Supervisory Care is hands-off. Personal care is hands-on. This is when you're actually helping your person get dressed, or you're helping them in the bathroom or in the shower. Then I define memory loss care as comfort care for those with dementia or Alzheimer's disease. But memory loss care is within a safe and secure setting, and that's the key there. And my final type of care is palliative care, and this is the care probably that your mother is most receiving. It's for persons that have serious or terminal illnesses, and perhaps they're bedbound or perhaps they're in hospice. But palliative care is comfort care, again, in a calm and serene setting. To make this more personal with my own experience with my mother as a long-distance caregiver, at first, Mother needed supervisory care. What she needed most in Arizona was a local driver, a person who could get her to and from the store or carrying in her groceries or even putting them away, because this physical effort of walking was taking her breath away with emphysema. And she also needed an advocate. She needed someone to go with her to the doctor appointments, including the driving, being in the room, taking the note at the doctor's, and then actually getting her prescriptions on the way home. And I was just ever so lucky on one of my visits to Arizona, and I always visited in March from Colorado. But as luck would have it, her neighbor had a daughter, Nadine, who was looking for part-time work. So she actually agreed to be my mother's local daughter, and she helped my mother out whenever she needed a driver. And my mother was even more pleased because I increased Nadine's help to include 2 hours a week of housekeeping for those physically demanding chores that just took her breath away. This help allowed Mother to remain living in her home alone, and it also saved her strength for her outings with her friends. That's my personal experience with my mother. But let me get back to using Dare to Care like a cookbook, and I have 4 different examples. First thing I do is I tell the person living alone, this is a person that doesn't have a caregiver yet, but knows that they're going to be getting to that age. I want them to skim through the pages. I want them to highlight the topics that they like to discuss with their family about their own individual caregiving needs. And I encourage them to write notes in the margin, just like you would if you added like mushrooms to a recipe, or if you wanted to make a note that what salad went well with that baked fish. And these notes are as much for themselves, but a lot of the people that actually buy my books are grandmothers who actually are sending them marked up to their adult grandchildren saying, when I need care, this is what I'd like to talk about, and this is the kind of care I would like to get. I also have the family caregiver to use the index like a cookbook to find their topic of interest. So let's say, for example, nutrition. They can turn to page 5 and they can review the 10 warning signs that might indicate that their person is at nutritional risk. And they can add a note to that wide side margin to remind themselves to talk to their mother to ask her if she's eating a fruit or vegetable with every meal. Also under nutrition, they can read about therapeutic diet, which is on page 10. That goes into bland diets, salt-free diets, sugar-free diets for diabetics. Also, there's nutritional tips specifically for the person with memory loss found starting on page 56. Another idea that I like to share for family members who share the care of their person, and this is how my stepmom and brother and I kind of use the book. For example, Dad goes from staying with a daughter to going to his son for a few months. You send the book along with Dad in his suitcase. The daughter caregiver can write several notes in the blank areas found in the care plans chapter. These notes might be specifically to, let's say, what works best. I might jot down that Dad has a hard time with buttons and zippers, use pants with elastic waistbands and golf shirts so that he can pull them over his head, and always remember to use his suspenders because Daddy doesn't like a belt. He wants suspenders. I also put in what does not work. Do not try to have Dad take a shower or dress before he eats his breakfast. He loves his breakfast in the morning when he gets up, and until he gets his breakfast, that's what he's focused on. You can also add notes to family members who are helping out, and you might highlight, don't let him pull on you. This is a problem we had when you want him to stand up. So what I have told the family, and they could write this in the care plan, is that coach Dad to slide forward in the chair first, and then have him push up on the chair arms using his legs to stand. You stand near him and you tell him to balance his feet before he takes a step. And then we always encourage him to use the cane. So I've actually written this in his care plan, so if this book goes with him someplace, people understand that he likes to be pulled up rather than doing it himself, and that can hurt your back. One of the last things I ask the family members to read and highlight Dare to Care before they go to see their aging parents or relatives. And the reason I do this is so that the book can be used as a storyboard. We use those in engineering all the time to kind of brainstorm and start discussions about what either is currently needed because they've been talking on the phone or what future caregiving needs the relative might come up with. So use it like a cookbook. Keep it handy. Use it as a reference, and use those wide side margins to personalize the book for the person that you're giving care to.
Yeah, I love the way you design this because there is room to write. So many books are loaded with great information, but you can't really use it as a reference book, and you really have given ample space to really use this as a reference book, and that the way you've designed it and laid it out is so cool. Can you talk, I'm going to get us a little bit off topic here, but one of your chapters is on emotional health, and I just think that is so critical and so overlooked sometimes in terms of the care process because we're so busy with those physical tasks that a lot of times people forget about that. What were your thoughts when you decided to write that chapter?
One of the things I like for emotional for me is just to take a break, maybe taking a walk around the block or going outside and maybe just sitting out on the back patio. Daddy loves to be outside. Caregivers have to realize that it's a very stressful job and they have to take time for themselves. And laughter, as you know, can greatly disrupt whatever stress that you have during whatever moment or whatever, and you can back off and use a little humor and then go forward with the care.
Yeah, I think humor is very, very important in the scheme of things. That's for sure. Well, let's go on to my next question here. Can you tell us about some specific topics that you think would be pertinent to Alzheimer's disease and dementia that you have in your book?